Sunday at high noon in the old YSN corral. It is time for the Franchise Fantasy Sports Podcast right here on the network. And we are joined by a very special guest today, Father of the Year candidate. It is Greg Brown. Greg, how are we doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing well. Usually on the comments section, it's nice to have you in person here, giving up some of that dad time, which we certainly appreciate. But we got a full slate today to talk about some great fantasy options for you today. After a wild Thursday that Rocky called almost perfectly and people don't understand. We did that on Wednesday night. We weren't giving up Thanksgiving. So
yeah.
He looked into his crystal ball and was able to win some money for some people. Today, it's your turn, my friend. So let's start with people typically that you're going to love today, that love on as we get to our individual games. Who overall are people that you have to have in your lineup today?
Minnesota Vikings.
Anybody on the Vikings?
I have as my son agrees, I have a 4-player stack in my millionaire maker today of the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, and Adam Thielen. Last week, if you played that combo against the Green Bay Packers, those 4 alone scored 118 points. If you know anything about what's going on in San Francisco, while their run D has been adequate, their pass D is very, very thin right now, and Kirk Cousins has 21 touchdowns to 2 interceptions this year. So I think if you put those two together after a Jefferson 40-point week and an Adam Thielen 22-point week going against a much less quality opponent, and especially as defensive backs, I think they're going to be in for a big day.
So the Purple People Eaters are on the table today. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, let's start with the Buccaneers and the Colts. Oh, man, the Colts have been looking real good lately, and obviously with Jonathan Taylor breaking out last week, is he a play this week for you at all in this game?
I think Jonathan Taylor is the perfect analogy for DraftKings or fantasy, daily fantasy this week in general. He's 9,100. There is not a lot of value on the slate today at all across the board. You have to spend up on players. And there's only 2 running backs really that you can spend up on before you go down to that 6 to 5K range. And it's either Jonathan Taylor or Christian McCaffrey. And Jonathan Taylor, he's projected to be the second highest running back after Christian McCaffrey. But their point spread is like a 1.5 difference. And that's just going to really depend on the touchdowns here. Jonathan Taylor has big playability, whether it's on the ground or through the air. I have him, a couple shares of him in today because, like I said, there's not a lot of value, so you got to pay up for somebody. I think that matchup against Tampa Bay, even though they give up a lot on through the air more than they do on the ground, that doesn't really hurt Taylor. So I think he's going to be a really good play. And I think, going along those lines of that Colts team, the only other one that I can really see on that offense is Michael Pittman Jr. Guy just finds a way to get open. He's very, very cheap today. I believe he's only like 5,700. 5,600 actually. He's only 5,600. And if you're looking to stack some high-end players, that's a value guy that should get a lot of run. And his target share lately is through the roof. He's been 8 after that. He had a 15 target game, 8, 5, 6, 8. So he's right there. And the only other person who's really getting targets for the Colts, Jonathan Taylor. So those are your 2 guys.
All right, for the Buccaneers, though, 2-3 on the road. So they head to the Lucas Oil Stadium and at 7-3 overall, I should say, and a 2.5-point favorite going into this game. The over-under set at 53. We're going to see some points. Do you like anybody other than Tom Brady for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Tom Brady's the most expensive quarterback today at 7-6. That's for a reason. The Colts' pass defense has been not good, and the Buccaneers love to pass the ball. And with that being said, I think he's in a stackable position today with, I'm not as heavy on Evans. I'm very, very big on Chris Godwin. He's only 7K today, especially with how they use Godwin. He goes from the outside into the slot. He's all over the place. And when you're looking at putting 2 pieces together to have a third piece, which I really like Leonard Fournette, and I'll get to that in a second. Mm-hmm. I just think Godwin's the guy today that's going to get you a bunch of yards. I would say if you could put me on an over-under, I'm going to say 110 is probably where I'm going to have him at. 110, hopefully a touchdown, maybe 2.
Wow. I like it. I like it a lot. Talk to me about Leonard Fournette.
We were talking about value. on this slate. Like that's been a big problem today. He's in that range where if I'm going on my running backs right here. Like I said, we have 9,000 and 9-1 for McCaffrey and Taylor. Then you got these 8K guys at Eckler and Cook, and you got to go all the way down for a 6-8 for Leonard Fournette. But the difference between Leonard Fournette and an Austin Eckler who's 8-4 is 2 fantasy points projected difference. That saves you $2,000 to make your lineup. And you want to talk about, we got wide receivers that are coming up in a couple games here later that are big boys that put up big boy numbers every week. Exactly, big boy numbers every week. And that's the guy to go down to because he's going to get touches and they're going to use him out of the backfield because they really have not liked Ronald Jones Jr. at all this year.
All right, let's get to Panthers Dolphins. 5-6 Panthers, the 4-7 Dolphins. That's going to be played at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida. Carolina, 1-point favorites with an over-under of 41. So not looking for as many points today out of your Dolphins and this Panthers matchup, Greg.
It's going to be a weird game because people like Christian McCaffrey is going to get the touches. Like I said, he's a big-time option. He looks like Christian McCaffrey. When he's healthy, he's the top running back in football. The question is, when does he stay healthy? Mm-hmm. And Christian McCaffrey at 9-1, he's projected for 23.3 fantasy points today. Cam Newton starting. Cam Newton likes him. He had a bunch of targets last week in that game. Let me go ahead. I'll get you the exact number here. As I click here. So last week, Christian McCaffrey had 10 rushes for 59 yards, but he had 7 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown. So he's there. Cam, I think they may be a good stack together as well. The Dolphins' pass D is 29th in the league. They spent a bunch of money on it. It has not panned out. I mean, I'm a Dolphins fan. Let's just call it what it is. They can't really defend the pass. They're 6th in the league against the rush, but if you got people who are capable and can use their hands to catch a football, well, by golly, you're in trouble. So it's just, I think Cam is a very underrated play too today because he's very cheap at 5'6". Like I said, Miami doesn't do well against the pass. He doesn't really have to throw for distance. DJ Moore is going to be in play with that, the same as Robbie Anderson. But Christian McCaffrey, he's going to be your bell cow, and he's one of the guys you got to spend up for.
DJ Moore, somebody that Rocky fell in love with the first 10 weeks or so, was on the schneid for 3 touchdowns for seemingly ever. Finally gets to number 4 last week. So
I got that. You got that. I got a text sent out when he scored that touchdown that said "more!" Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! 111! Exclamation point!
Finally gets back on the board after a hot start. All right, let's move down to Foxborough, I guess up to Foxborough from Florida. Gillette Stadium, that'll be the spot where the Patriots are 7-4. They will host the 8-3 Titans. But this is a different-looking Titans team, Greg, than we're used to. You got Tannehill, obviously, but you're at a loss for words for running backs. Adrian Peterson came on strong, not necessarily the case anymore. The Patriots 7.5-point favorites and the over-under set at 43. So we're seeing some low-scoring games, at least projected today. Who do you like from out of these two teams on this game?
I'm gonna jump back real quick. Panthers and Dolphins defense are maybe a good position to go into too because there's not going to be a lot of scoring in that one. But Titans have no one. I'm avoiding this game almost entirely outside of a couple shares of New England's defense and maybe a little bit of that like Ramondre Stevenson, Dwayne Harris sort of combo. I don't know which one because they're 61 and 59. They're both active today. So I don't know who's going to get the share. Yeah, right. I mean, we remember the old LeGarrette Blount days, and they did that all the time. LeGarrette Blount get all the goal line touches. Anybody else will touch it outside of there. But the Titans, their wide receiver core today. No A.J. Brown, no Julio Jones, no Johnson, no McMath, no Batson. So they're literally running with like Rodgers, Fitzpatrick, Hollister. These are all 3K guys that I wouldn't touch with a 37-foot pole. It just the only guy on their team that I am really interested in is Hilliard. He had a great game last game out of the backfield because they didn't have any other options. He's only 4,600. He had 7 rushes for 30 yards, but he had 8 catches. And Tannehill's probably going to have to throw a lot to make up for the fact that they don't have anything. But it's 3,900 for the Patriots defense. You probably a couple sprinkles into their offensive players like Jacoby Myers, even though he's only had one touchdown this year. Maybe Kendrick Bourne at 4.49. But yeah, avoid Tennessee. Don't like this game. When you had this projected for like the beginning of the year with how these teams are playing, you're like, oh, the Titans are going to blow out the Patriots. And then we had that shift week 5 where the Patriots started playing good. And then we had a shift week 7 where Henry was gone. And now it's like the Titans are like 7 guys, 3 paint cans, and a duck trying to play offense out there. And you're like, what is going on? Like it's going to be a cavalcade of errors on that side. And I think you may get a couple turnovers for the Patriots team.
So at 3,900, I mean, that's like the top of the Rocky Brown defensive pyramid. Yeah. He doesn't like touching people unless they're 2,000 and less than 3.
That's the same way I am. Most of the time, the difference between like a 2,300 defense and a 3,900 defense is like 3 fantasy points. You can spend that $1,000 elsewhere. However, on a day like today, they're in Foxborough. The crowd's going to be just really rambunctious. They're back in first place in the AFC. The Titans, like I said, have no one. This may be a day where they get 25 fantasy points, and that's going to be a little bit different than what the $2,200 Jacksonville Jaguars are going to do against the Falcons.
So I guess the question, and I apologize, I'm trying to figure this out because I think I know what you're saying. So you can spend a little more on defense today because everywhere else seemingly is going to be a little bit tighter.
You're going to have a very low amount of value in other positions. You're going to play mainly 2 big, like expensive guys at 9K, 8K region, and then you're going to have to sprinkle in all these 5K people.
So do you think a defense could win you some money today?
I think of the Patriots. I think the Patriots could win you some money today. And surprisingly, I also think that the Houston Texans could win you some money.
Oh, today. Sweet Bippy.
And that's our separation, 39, 2,300. Those are the baby. 2 teams that I have.
Oh, baby. I can't wait to get to that and hear that explanation. All right, let's get to East Rutherford, New Jersey, where the Giants are hosting the Eagles. Giants 3-7 overall. The Eagles 5-6. I think the Eagles are coming onto their own and coming into their own. Jalen Hurts has been an absolute godsend to Philadelphia. Who do you like in this with Philadelphia being favored by 3.5? The over-under set it a little bit higher, 45.5.
This is my favorite game on the slate.
Really?
And namely because where I'm talking about that small range of value that we have today, this is that game. Saquon Barkley's active, 6,300. Miles Sanders got a lot more touches than people thought he was going to last week, 5,100. Devonta Smith, he is at, I believe, 6,400. Dallas Goedert at 48. Evan Ingram at 38. No Kadarius Toney today. No Darius Slayton. Like there's a bunch of people out. I'm sorry. Darius Slayton is in. Sterling Shepard is out. So like they're just the people that are going to be in the field of play are all like the actual value picks of today, and both defenses in those areas get gashed. Like Evan Ingram statistically this year has not been a great play at tight end, but at 3,800 today, and the Philadelphia Eagles are the 32nd ranked team against the tight ends. It's a good matchup for him. Yep. Like, and same on the flip side, Giants have been really poor against tight ends. Dallas Goedert's only 4,800. You compare him with Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts, who's the expensive piece at 73. Like that's a great stack to have where you can still afford people like Cooper Kupp and Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor. But I really do like that game on both ends. I have a lot of Eagles. I have a lot of Giants. Maybe Danny Dimes has a good game. I don't know. He only has 9 touchdowns this year, but he likes to run. I think you're going to see a lot of rushing out of quarterbacks today in that game with Hurts and Jones.
But he's due. That's all I'm saying. Like he's supposed to be the guy. And
great start to the year, and then it just.
All right, let's head down to Jacksonville. You want to talk about an absolute you-know-what show. 55 degrees says AccuWeather at TIAA Bank Field, where the Jaguars, who are 2-8, are going to host the Falcons, who are 4-6. I think this game could be upset city for the Jags. Atlanta favored by only 2 with an over-under set at 46. Who do you like in this one?
There are so limited offensive pieces. Like we had Marvin Jones at the beginning of the year go nuts. And since that 300-yard 4-week start, right now he's sitting at 486 yards. He's just fallen off a cliff. Laviska Shenault had his best game when he was 4,200. He scored 17 fantasy points, which doesn't even reach over that 3.5 value that you're looking for that cost. He's 400 yards. He has 0 touchdowns. He's not scoring a lot of fantasy points. But Atlanta sucks. And Jacksonville's defense sucks. Atlanta has no real offensive pieces. Patterson's probably your play today. He's back. Mike Davis has become a non-factor in that offense. Mm-hmm. They have no real wide receivers. Sharp at 30, I think he's 34. Kyle Pitts, even though this is not a expensive tight end day. I think he's the most expensive on the slate for the tight ends. I believe he's sitting pretty at maybe 6'1". Yep, 6'1". He only has 1 touchdown this year. So even if you get a high catch share, which he hasn't got recently anyways, you're not going to be touchdown dependent on him, and that's a little bit rough, which is why I'm steering away from the expensive tight ends today. He's 7 targets, 5 targets, last 3, 3 catches, 4 catches, 3 catches, no touchdowns. Been abysmal. His highest point total is 10. So I'm not paying $6,100 for 10 points out of a tight end. I'd rather pay down to a guy who's 2.5 and take a chance that maybe he gets a goal line touchdown. But I really don't know. Atlanta, I like Matt Ryan. I've played him a bunch this year. I shouldn't have. I kick myself in the butt every day because of it. But I really, outside of that, I have shares of Jacksonville's defense at 2-2 because I don't trust the Falcons' offense, and I have shares of Atlanta's defense, and I think they're 2-4, just because their offenses. This may be a game where it's 9-2 because somebody gets a safety. I don't it's gonna be bad.
All right, that doesn't get much better here. Let's take a trip to Houston, Texas, an NRG Stadium where the Jets 2-8 going up against the Texans 2-8. Houston favored by 3 somehow, and the over/under set at 44.5. All right, I got to hear it. Give me your explanation on this one.
I don't know if Rock's tuning in because I know he's having internet issues. I love this game today. Because it's going to be pure chaos, and it's all value plays, and it could be a game like that Jacksonville Atlanta where it ends up 9-6, or it could be a day where it ends up 41-36. You have no idea because these teams have no identity.
Who's quarterbacking the Texans today? Is it Tyrod
Taylor? Yep.
They've got Davis Mills. This is ESPN. They have Davis Mills listed as a player to watch. So I don't like that.
Yeah. It looks really easy to stack the Texans because it is. Just don't do it. Just play those offensive pieces. Brandon Cooks at 5,800 today. He may have 180 yards receiving. It's just one of those things he's going to get used a ton.
Yep.
That's just how it is. Elijah Moore on the flip side. He had a great game now that he's in the starting role. The issue is the great game that he had, 8 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown on 11 targets was with Joe Flacco. Zach Wilson's back today. So does Zach Wilson have the ability to just go, I know I only have a job for 1 week. Screw it. And just chuck it deep like Flacco did? Probably not, because now he's got to think, all the boo birds are going to come out for me again as soon as I throw 1 pick. But I like Elijah Moore is good. There's no Michael Carter today. So you got people like Tyler Johnson and Tevin Coleman that are going to be in the Jets backfield that are going to be the dump off options. Elijah Moore is great at 5'6". Brandon Cooks is great at 5'8". I wouldn't even worry about going down to a 5-1 for Zach Wilson if you're going to want to stack this game and just take and have every playback option. Because like I said, it could be 41-36. Nobody knows because these teams don't know what's going on.
I love where they have the tickets as low as, and they show you how low you can get tickets for. All right, so just for perspective, the Jaguars tickets as low as $27. Here in Texas, in Houston, tickets as low as $10. So that being said, it's time for one of my favorite games to play with Greg Brown, and that is things you'd rather do than watch the Jets and Texans.
Watch a real burly Samoan guy beat the crap out of my mother. This game, it's great for fantasy value, but I'm not going to sit there for $10 in that stadium. Are you kidding me? You those tickets that are $10, by the way, you're sitting on the 50. You're not in the crowd. You're in the field of play.
They gave you a helmet.
Yeah, you're starting D tackle today because the Texans need it.
Oh
congratulations. Gosh. But no, it's going to be really fun for fantasy purposes. There's a lot of value there, especially at the wide receivers. Both teams not great defensively. And it's another one where I think I'm taking the Texans because I don't trust Zach Wilson. I could see where that could go with Elijah Moore, but I think the Texans are going to get up with Tyrod and Brandon Cooks having a good connection. And I think it's going to be Jets having to try to get back into it. And that's going to be where the excitement comes in at the end of the game. And maybe it ends up 31-24.
I like your Wilson could have a day. He could get out there and he could just sling it, because who cares if he loses his job? He already did it once. So
those 4 teams that we just mentioned, Atlanta, Jacksonville, New York, and Houston, it's the Who Cares Bowl. We got 2 of them today. And it's great because all these guys are probably playing for this opportunity to stay on the roster next year.
I thought this is where Ohio State was going, the Who Cares Bowl.
Oh, don't worry. I'm still hurt by that. But it's these, at least we lost to Michigan's a talented team. They outcoached us. They outplayed us. But I think, honestly, either Michigan or Ohio State may be able to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars.
You're probably not far off.
Urban Meyer would get so upset that Ohio State took the lead, he'd fake another heart attack.
All right. Let's get a 4:00 slate. Chargers 6-4 coming in, heading to Mile High to take on the Broncos, who are 5-5. Chargers are 3-point favorites. The over-under set at 47. Help me out, Greg. I don't understand why the Chargers are only 3-point favorites.
Surprisingly, Denver's defense this season has not been that bad.
Even without Von Miller.
And I think the reason is that they're playing in Denver. So you have the altitude. I think they're going to give, Denver a little bit of they're both their defenses are, I think they're projected for 6.38 and 6.36. They're super similar. And especially in cost, Broncos are 2,600. Their defense is not bad. However, I think the Chargers offense is going to explode today. Just a personal opinion. I could be 100% wrong. I don't think I am. I have shares of Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. My big play today is Mike Williams. We know that earlier in the year, it looked like he was number 1 and Keenan Allen had shifted down to number 2. That has now flipped. The targets where Justin Herbert sees the field better than a lot of quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. The target's going to go to the guy who's open. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And that could be a day where Mike Williams is a guy that's open. And at 5,700, I'm willing to take that chance to be hey, this is my value wide receiver, one of my value wide receivers, because we have these expensive options. That if he can have a game like he did against, who was it at the beginning of the year? Kansas City, 7 catches, 122. That was when he was 6'4". We're talking 5'7". He's dropped dramatically. He went up to 8-1 at one point, and now he's just
went off in Cleveland too, didn't he?
And he had a really good game last week against Pittsburgh. But yeah, against Cleveland, it was 8 for 170 yards or something like that. It was something ridiculous.
Yeah, Williams had 2 or 3 touchdowns in that game, if I'm not mistaken.
And it was 2 touchdowns. I think that was his high for targets this year too. I think it was 16 or 15.
Yeah.
And that could be a day like today, because if you have these options, that's a game that I wish was more affordable to stack. Minnesota's the affordable one to stack just because how prices lie with 2 of those positions. But if you want to try to play Herbert, Eckler, Allen, and Williams, you got no money. And today's not a day where there's a lot of value to go around to kind of sprinkle in those people.
Yeah, I missed a game in the 1:00 slate, so I apologize. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh.
We'll go back to it.
When you have those 2 teams, Cincinnati's already got a win over Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh trying to stay alive in the playoff race. So from that standpoint, it looked like the offense came alive against Los Angeles on Sunday night. Do you feel like Pittsburgh has some plays here, or are you still staying away from anything that is black and gold?
Freiermuth, 4,300.
Okay,
I think he's a good play just because he's a starter. There's no Ebron, so there's nobody really cutting into his target share there at the tight end spot. We know Ben's arm isn't what he used to be, but again, he's 39. We don't expect him to have super arm forever. Not everyone's Tom Brady.
That's true.
Maybe Nacho Harris is another guy where I know last time he torched Cincinnati, but it wasn't on the ground; it was through the air. I think he had 10 catches, 14 catches last time against Cincinnati. They lost 24-10 that game, but he had 31 fantasy points. If it becomes a situation like that today where Joey B and and the gang are just chucking the ball wherever they want to, that's the guy that's going to catch you up. And again, like I said, not a lot of value. There's a lot of tight, good players at that 8K to 9K range for running backs. He's one of them. And, he's sitting right now at 685 yards on the ground this year, but he does have a lot of catches. I think if I were to go anywhere, at least on their offense for Pittsburgh, it's going to be Harris and it's going to be Freiermuth.
All right, Mixon or Harris? You had to pick one. Who would you pick?
I would go Mixon based off of price, just because I would like to have that $700 savings to play somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I believe their projections are extremely similar, which is good because they're similar in price. Let's see here. We have Harris at 18.2. We have our boy Joey Mixon right here at 17.3. So they're, if you're going to be right there and you're both at 2.3, 2.2 for times value for your salary, I'd rather save the 700. I do like T. Higgins today. I've been on the T. Higgins train for a little bit, but I think when you're talking about a 6'4" guy that's able to go into the slot and play inside a lot with Tyler Boyd and that rotation that they have, Pittsburgh really doesn't defend the slot too well unless Minkah Fitzpatrick's the one doing it. I just think it's a good option to have him today, and I think he's really cheap at 5-1.
Jamar Chase was the difference in the last meeting. Do you feel like Jamar Chase is a good play today?
I think people – I don't want to say they're starting to figure him out, but I think they're starting to have more overhead protection because they know that his ability to catch the ball deep is better than a lot of people, especially a lot of people who projected when he was in preseason, I can't see the ball. You can see it. Trust me, he sees it.
Just fine.
But I just think that overhead safety help is where Fitzpatrick is probably going to go today, so he doesn't get torched like Hayden on the outside. And that's why I think you may see a guy like T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd go for a handful of catches, handful of yards, and make you some money.
This game we're going to talk about next is the game that I cannot wait to watch. The Rams and the Packers. Rams 7-3, Packers 8-3. This is going to be played at Lambeau Field. 36 degrees, partly sunny, partly cloudy. And the Rams favored by 2 with an over-under set at 47. Greg, there's a lot to like in this game offensively that can get you a lot of points, but you got to play them wisely.
Cooper Kupp is the most expensive player on the slate. He's $9,600. I can't remember a 10K receiver in the regular season, not like a captain showdown in forever. So this is something really different that we're seeing. But again, he's been that dude all year. He's averaging 27.7 fantasy points a game. Matthew Stafford loves him. Mm-hmm. And, he's on pace to pass Calvin Johnson's receiving yards in a season record. You know who the quarterback for Calvin Johnson was? Matthew Stafford. He knows. He's like, this is the same guy. They're not giving him the overhead coverage that they had to do on Calvin Johnson. I'm just going to chuck it to him, see what happens. But that's for that reason. I think Green Bay with Alexander on the outside, who's probably going to shadow Kupp. I think that's why we should Odell Beckham may be the guy today.
Let's go
5K. I have him in. I'm an Odell Beckham fan. I know that people really, went after him and said he's a team cancer and all this stuff when Baker Mayfield, the actual team cancer, was, doing his stuff. But at 5K, he wanted to go to Green Bay. They only offered him a minimum. He ends up going to LA. I think this is a good spot for him. They had the bye week last week. He's got time to now learn the playbook. I think the criticism of him in the first game that he played with the Rams for having 3 targets and 2 catches after getting the playbook on Friday afternoon and playing a game on Monday. He played 15 snaps and they're like, that's it. He's ruining the Rams. I was like, how? He's been there for 2.5 days. He's not a bacteria. He's a human being. But I like him at 5K a lot. I really do. I think he's better than Van Jefferson at 4.9. They're very similarly priced, but if you look at just overall ability and athletic ability, I'm going to go that $100 more to Odell Beckham. And on the flip side, Devontae Adams, 8.6, another guy who's a monster, where I think you're going to see a game today where you're going to have 2 lockdown corners in Alexander and Jalen Ramsey shadowing number ones. I would hope so instead of playing this island stuff, because if you're going to let Cooper Kupp just stay in the slot and not follow him around, he's going to eat you alive.
You
and
have
on the flip,
you have the money.
Yep.
Do you take Kupp or Adams?
For what I would need to do with other positions, I'm going to go with Adams, because that $1,000 difference is a lot. And I don't like Rodgers at 6'9" today, just because he's been playing a little bit odd. And, we got the toe injury, and I think the Rams defense may try to hassle him a little bit, which they're a great defense. They played like crap last week. But, on the flip side, Stafford, I think, is going to have a good game because Packers have an okay pass rush. The Rams have an elite pass rush, and I think that's what's going to end up being the difference. But yeah, just Adams, just because you can fit a lot more with that 1K.
All right.
If you're not playing the expensive running backs, though, go Kupp. If you're not going up to Kupp, or I'm sorry, if you're not going up to McCaffrey or Taylor, then you funnel the money over and you play Kupp.
All right, you ready? Here's what you've been waiting for. It's the Vikings at 5-5, the Niners at 5-5 in Levi's Stadium. Niners favored by 3.5. Over under set at 49. Gregory, take it away.
If you are playing the afternoon slate and you do not have the Vikings stacked, for shame. For shame. Justin Jefferson arguably has been the best receiver in football this season. You can make that argument. I mean, look at statistics.
Over 60, Cooper Kupp?
Him, Kupp, and Adams are top 3, and I don't think there's anyone else particularly close. Like 63 catches, 944 yards. They have to watch him at all times, and that's what opens up Adam Thielen to just be a touchdown monster. And that's why I think against a secondary like San Francisco, who is very, very thin and very, very depleted today, it could just be a field day where Kirk Cousins, of all people, just picks them apart. Today I do, Kirker. Today I do. Kirk Cousins today, I believe is 6,300, which is why, like I said, I like this stack a little bit more than the Chargers stack. I love Herbert. He's at 6.6, but just the prices of everyone else is tough because of just Eckler being up at 8.4.
Sure.
But with what you have with Kirk Cousins, he's projected for 17.1. It's 2.7 times value, which is okay for a quarterback. You're not trying to make your money at quarterback anyways. You're trying to make your money at the skill positions. Adam Thielen has 8 touchdowns this year. Justin Jefferson has 6 touchdowns this year. Dalvin Cook, I believe, has 9 touchdowns this year in total. At some point during this game, one of those 3 are going to score because nobody else does in Minnesota. You had that random Tyler Conklin 2-touchdown game like 2 weeks ago where everyone's like, that's it. They have another option. They don't. Don't fool yourself. He was just the only guy that was open in the red zone. And you can just stack up that Minnesota team. But on the flip side, San Francisco, Samuel has also been great. 994 yards receiving this year, 8 touchdowns. Kittle comes back. He's the most expensive tight end on the slate today at 6'4". Minnesota plays the tight end pretty decently, but at the same time, if they start hitting Kittle, that opens up overhead. And who's the fastest dude on that team? Samuel. He gonna go deep. So it's a good game to stack. I'm staying away from the defenses. No 2-4, no 2-6, which is what I think they're at, or 3-3 or whatever. I'd rather pay down for the Houston Texans. But there's a lot of offensive components on both of those teams. I mean, you can go down to Jimmy G at 5'7". He's getting you 18 points. I think he's projected for 18 today. Their offense has come alive recently. They've looked really good the last couple weeks. The issue is that defense is so hurt right now that I think that's where Minnesota's going to have a field day.
2 games left on our slate. Both of them are going to be 1-game stacks. But this one, we're going to talk about Browns and Ravens. Browns 6-5, Ravens 7-3. This game being played in Baltimore at M&T Bank Stadium. Baltimore 3-point favorites at home, which basically means it's pick 'em. The over-under set at 47. Greg, a lot of Browns fans feeling like if they don't win this game, the season is over. Who is going to keep their season alive if you had to pick some fantasy players tonight?
The one who's going to keep their season alive is Lamar Jackson, since Baltimore is the original Cleveland. Your season's done. I like the Browns. They're my second favorite team after the Dolphins, just because I've been in this area forever. Baker Mayfield's a problem. And I'm not talking like team cancer problem like my joke earlier. He's so injured and he's too prideful to say, I'm too banged up to play of quality. And he doesn't want Case Keenum to come in and play good and make sure he doesn't get no money next year. That's the situation that's going on. He has so much pride and the fact that he wants to be that dude and get that contract that he's literally hurting his team. And I think he's going to do that again for the Sunday night game. And I think that's why Lamar Jackson is going to torch them. I mean, I like Chubb. It's tough on the showdown games because you always have to have that captain slot, and you always know that they're going to take a little bit more money. I trust no Browns wide receiver as far as I could throw your house or YSN Studios, like because Baker doesn't use them. They're the only team in football that doesn't have a receiver that's over 20 catches. That was the issue with Odell Beckham. Like, and I get that. But when you have 3 tight ends that have more targets than Odell Beckham Jr. on your team, there's an issue with your quarterback. That's just my opinion. And I don't trust Baker to play well, especially in Baltimore. If it was in Cleveland, maybe a little bit different situation. But, I mean, you had him complaining on Twitter this week about, the fans that are booing him. He's like, those are the same people that are too loud when I'm trying to get, go in the huddle. Hey, you're a football player. That happens. Crowds get excited. You got to deal with it. You're a professional. If you're a high school sophomore, you got to deal with crowds ringing cowbells and saying stuff. It's the same thing, but now it's on a grander scale. Quit complaining. But Chubb is probably a guy that I'm looking at. Kareem Hunt comes back. I don't know what he'll be limited to or how they'll use him.
He's projected at 10 points or so. So
I wouldn't put him in the captain slot. I mean, I would put him in a flex at 7K for 10 points on the random chance that he gets in the end zone on a pass. I really do believe that the guys you're going to look for, like Bateman, I think he's like 6'4" for this showdown. Mark Andrews. On the Cleveland side, hammer tight ends. That's what Baker does. Look at Njoku. Look at Harrison Bryant. Like those guys, they're his favorite targets. Look at Chubb. I like Landry. He's a Dolphin before he became a Brown. He finally got a touchdown last week. I still don't trust it. I can't.
A running touchdown.
Yeah. The interesting thing, the first 3 touchdowns scored in last week's slate of games for the 1 o'clocks were all rushing touchdowns and all by wide receivers.
Wow.
And I was like, what is happening? Like, I want that 1 point for that PPR. I want that point per reception because that's going to help me out. Nope. All rushing touchdowns. But yeah, it was so weird last week. And the NFL this season in its totality has been the oddest year ever. Like, there's no real top dog anywhere. Everyone's kind of even except for the really bad team.
Perfect segue, my friend, right into the Monday Night Football game between the Seahawks and the Washington football team that are 4-6 on the year. It's going to be played at FedEx Field. Seahawks flying in 3-7, and this line is even Stevens at even for the line. The over/under set at 46.5. If I was talking to Greg from, let's say, 5 years ago, and I said that the Seahawks and the Washington football team were going to be even in 2021 in Week 11, you would say,
what happened to Pete Carroll? Did Seattle blow up and fall off the map? Seattle, I know that whole city's riding high because they just traded for Adam Frazier. So now they got a Frazier back in Seattle for the first time since NBC had it on in 1994. But Seattle, you have problems. There are massive problems out here on your team. And it stinks because Russell Wilson is a good quarterback. DK Metcalf is a good wide receiver. Tyler Lockett is the most streaky wide receiver in football. There will be 3 weeks in a row where he has 186 yards, and then he has 1 catch, 2 catches, 3 targets. Russell Wilson, I don't think is going to be in Seattle next year. I really think he's going to be gone. I don't think he's staying. But for today, he's the only real person you could put in the captain slot. Well, Monday, because he's not today's game, Monday night game. But he's the only real person you can put in the captain slot. You don't have a lot of options here where you're looking at people who are going to get fed because you need the guy to feed them. Russell Wilson's got to feed those other guys. And with how streaky it's been for their pass game because they don't really have a rushing attack, it's going to be him on the ground when they get into red zone, trying to push it in from 3-5 yards out, or it's going to be him doing little dump offs to the running back that may catch you. And that's where your value play is going to come in. I believe it's Alex Collins at 6'6". That's going to be your guy because, I mean, at least Seattle side. I really like Scary Terry for Monday Night Captain Showdown. He may be the only other person I put in the captain slot at 10-6, but with Russell only being 1,100 or 11,000 for the captain slot, I would rather take the chance to get the double points on maybe a rushing touchdown and passing touchdowns. But Scary Terry should tear their defense apart. It's so weird that the Legion of Boom era is so dead in Seattle.
Not
like
close to
that,
arrive.
you wouldn't imagine going and playing a wide receiver against Sherman and Brandon Browner and Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas. You'd be like, nah, I'll pass. I'll go to the running backs. But now it's just like it's a field day. Anyone who wants to, I might be able to throw like 110 yards against Seattle.
Just 110.
I don't know if my arm could take it after that.
If I know Greg, like I know Greg, he's still hucking it, chucking it for 40 yards a pop, no problems.
Trying. Too old. Couldn't see over the line, too short. That's why I couldn't make it.
You and I both, brother. We got about 20 minutes left in this show, which typically means it is time for our, your roster that you're putting forward. Who are you playing today, Greg? What lineup would you like to share with our great audience here?
I will share a couple with you guys because, I already talked about my Minnesota stack, so that's the one I'm going to go with here at least to start. Because there are options that you have around. This is my afternoon only slate because we only have those 3 games, but that's where you have a lot of high price players at with Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams and the whole fixins. What Cousins at quarterback, Dalvin Cook at running back, AJ Dillon at running back because Aaron Jones has some injury concerns. They call him a true game time decision. They think he may be able to go, but next week is also the Packers bye week, and they think, what if he got 2 weeks of rest instead of 1 week of maybe another injury and trying to rest on top of that. But at 5,900, I'm going to take that chance because he's the guy who catches the ball in the backfield. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen at 8-3 and 6-7 respectively. Mike Williams at wide receiver, Randall Cobb in the flex. Josiah DeGuara is the Packers starting tight end at 2-6. I don't trust him in any real slate outside of just the afternoon only, but that way if you play him, last week he had 2 catches for 37 yards and a touchdown, but if you do that, you're able to fit in every high-priced player outside of that Kupp and Adams combo. And then I went Vikings defense just to make the money work because I don't really see that much of a difference between, that little share there. And then we got here is my all-day single entry. I only went with Kirk Cousins on this one. I didn't do the full stack, did a partial stack. Kirk Cousins at quarterback, Saquon Barkley and Miles Sanders at 6-3 and 5-1. I really like that Philadelphia New York game. I think that's going to be an exciting one to watch. Brandon Cooks at receiver at 5'8". Hopefully he'll torch New York. Justin Jefferson at 8'3". Elijah Moore at 5'6". Freiermuth at 4-3, Mike Williams in that flex position at 5-7, and then the Houston Texans D at 2-3, make it all possible. And what I do actually when I watch the show when I'm not able to be on it is I make a lineup after I hear recommendations and I see how it goes. Since I'm the one recommending today, it's been a little tougher to do, but we're stockpiling some guys here throughout the course of the day and trying to figure out how can I make money work with McCaffrey and Kupp in the same lineup, because those are your 2 most expensive, right? That's when you're going to have to look if you're going that route and you're trying to play this boom bust lineup where you have these high price guys, and we don't have a lot of low value today, but we have enough where we can kind of wiggle it with that flex position, tight end and defense. You have to pay down at quarterback, and today is a good day to pay down at quarterback because even our most expensive is only 7.6. We only have 3 guys at 7,000. Everyone else is underneath. And this is the day where you can stockpile that 6'1", 6'2", 5'8" area. Wentz, Burrow, Tannehill, Garoppolo, that little region that is all projected for around the same. They're all at from 17.1 to 17.9. They're all right there. $200, $300 difference. So if you're going to build that way, that's the route I would go. I may drop off a little Danny Dimes action just because I like him at 5'6". But if you're going to make that lineup work where you have these expensive guys, you have to find that low end dude that you think, hey, this is a chance. And I think that Philadelphia, New York game, and I think that Jacksonville, Atlanta game may be your opportunity to play like a Trevor Lawrence at 5'4" and have some actual run.
All right, dude. Thanks for that. Appreciate it, and appreciate you filling in. I like this. This was a nice little pinch hit for you, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, Rock's going to be really salty when people win money. But at the same time, this year I am the breadwinner of the highest earnings in a day. So, I mean, was it because of advice I was on the show? Yes. Was it a week that I was also on the show? You betcha. But there's money to be made here, and Rock does so much research, way more than me. This is I do research. Don't get me wrong, but he really pours his heart into it. I was really sad he couldn't make it today, but at the same time,
time for Greg to bring home the bacon. I like
it.
Dude, thank you so much for filling us in, give us the insight for today's slate. Obviously, you're welcome here anytime, and hopefully we'll catch up with you next Sunday.
And if you guys use any services out there, Awesemo.com today has their free projections out for NBA. That lineup, I believe the line's closed today at 5:00 because it's a later start on a Sunday. You can actually go and look at their projections for free at Awesemo.com and kind of get a little bit of head up because we're not on an NBA show today. We're on an NFL show. So if you're playing an NBA lineup, that's going to be your best bet to find anything free to help you out.
And Greg, how do people get a hold of you if they want more information?
I am Mr. Kraken on a bunch of social medias, TikTok, Facebook gaming,
there it is,
Instagram, Twitch. I'm kind of all over the place at this point. TikTok is mainly my bread and butter. That's where you see a lot of my comedy. And it's always weird to me where sometimes like people will send me a video. They're like, is this you? And I'm like, no. So that I can avoid that person. But yeah, it's been an interesting ride, but you can find me on all those. And I usually try to respond to everybody who leaves a comment because they turned away DMs on TikTok for people who you don't follow. So if you leave a comment, I'll try to get back a hold of you.
There it is, Mr. Kraken. Get a hold of him for all your fantasy info. He's also a pretty funny guy and a good guy and a great dad as well. So until next time, this has been the Fantasy for the Franchise Fantasy Sports Podcast right here on your sports network. So long, everybody.
Let's go Vikes!